Hello and welcome back. It's Carla again, and what we're looking at this week is the fourth aspect in my 6 essential aspects of empathy model, which I developed both from my massive experience as a hyper empath, and when I was little it was out of control and it was kind of miserable, and now that I understand it more clearly, it's sort of like empathy, not a problem. When I talk about these 6 aspects, I want you to understand that it's not like a plodding step through the aspects and then you figure it out. Rather, it happens in a split second. It happens in an instant. And that's how it should happen, right? Empathy is our capacity to engage with other people. But if you've got any problems with empathy, it's really important to be able to slow it down, insert a bunch of cognitive pauses in each step and see, where is my difficulty, right? For a lot of people, the difficulty is way back in step 1 at emotion contagion. Emotion contagion is, again, it sounds terrible, but it is delightful. We love it. We live for it. But when we catch an emotion that we don't have any skills for, emotion contagion can be awful. And the trick is not to run away and never be with people again or to shut down empathy. It's to learn how to work with emotions, right? Emotions are the foundation of empathy. And if you're good with emotions, empathy is a heck of a lot easier. So we looked in the previous weeks at emotion contagion. Then we looked at empathic accuracy, which is knowing which emotion is there, knowing the context, understanding what is expected of you, what the other person is feeling. Then there is emotion regulation, which is crucial because, again, if you pick up an emotion you can't regulate, then empathy kind of ends right there, and you may move into the emotion in the way that the person is, and let's say that person is sort of falling apart, and then you start falling apart, that's not going to help, right? Or let's say they're having an emotion that you've been taught to despise. And so empathy would also stop right there because you not only don't know how to regulate the skill, you don't know how to identify it as a function of that person's intelligence. So you'd be like, well, if you're going to be mad, then I'm leaving, and when you calm down, then we can talk. And what that does is it isolates angry people and doesn't help them at all to engage in such a way that their anger can be held in an honorable fashion, right? It just kicks them out. So understanding emotion regulation is crucial, and once you have those emotional steps in place, then you sort of flip up to the 4th aspect of empathy, which is perspective taking. And simply, and yet not so simply, it is to take the perspective of the other, not your perspective. This is empathy, right? It is to take the perspective of the other. So I have a joke that I tell, and it's about my mom. She used to say to me when I was little, Carla, put on a sweater, I'm cold. And it's very funny, but it is a perfect example, and I talked to her about this when she was alive. She laughed, but it's a perfect example of not doing perspective taking properly. Because even now, today, I run very hot. So when it's cold outside, I'm like, woohoo! I'm going to put on my shorts and go play in the rain, right? But she ran cold. So it was important for her to put on a sweater. It had nothing to do with me, right? So perspective taking is knowing who needs the sweater, right? And being appropriate about your boundaries and the boundaries of another person, your needs, your emotions, the needs and emotions of another person. Right? So perspective taking is, how does the other person feel, right? You've caught the emotion through emotion contagion, you've been accurate about it, you've regulated the emotion, and now you need to understand the separation between yourself and the other. If you don't make that separation, it can be very problematic, right? A lot of problems with empathy are in this perspective taking area because an emotion happens and you don't make any separations or differentiations between yourself and that other person, right? The emotion is just going to bowl you over, or it's going to make you cranky or whatever, and empathy ends. So understanding the perspective of the other there's actually a really fun way to develop this, and it is reading literature, watching drama, listening to music. Any of the arts are essentially professional perspective-taking resources, right? So if you're in a novel and you are feeling what that person, in the novel is feeling, if you're feeling what the characters are feeling, you're practicing perspective taking. If you are listening to a song and you are transported into the emotions and you can identify what the singer is intending to convey, you are practicing perspective taking, right? And if you watch a drama or a play, a movie, and you are able to sort of transport into the characters, you're doing perspective taking, and it has a direct effect on your capacity for empathy. So perspective taking seems kind of simple. Well, of course I can take his perspective. I would say if you're like, well, of course, probably you're not, right? But understanding how the other thinks, feels, and sees the world, how the other wants to be treated, how the other understands what is happening to them, that your empathy can be skilled and precise and often incredibly, incredibly sensitive, and like nobody would even know that you had just done it, right? And I tell this story in the book, The Art of Empathy, about, let's imagine that you are walking down the street, and across the street you see a very well-dressed man with a briefcase, and he's sort of preoccupied and doesn't see a crack in the sidewalk, and he trips on it, right? He doesn't fall, but he trips. And the first thing he does is whips his head around to see if anyone had seen him, because he feels shameful. Skilled empath, you have not seen him. You're like, look at that building. The building is wonderful. How about those birds, right? You are intentionally ignorant of this person's condition because that is what they have transmitted to you, right? And you would keep that person in the corner of your eye to make sure that, his sudden shock is not, full of endorphins and he doesn't realize that he's actually been hurt, right? You just keep him quietly in your sphere of influence. But if you think of empathy as something that's about you, and it's like, I'm wearing an empathy cape and I'm just this wonderful empathizer, yes. You might run across the street with your empathy cape, and I think it's probably a rainbow cape, has unicorns on it, and you would say, sir, I saw you fall, and I want to know if you're okay, right? And pretty much you would destroy his entire day. Okay, so empathy needs to be about what the other wants, not what you want, and not something that will make you look empathic, right? So it's once you get, I think each of the 6 aspects of empathy has a lot of nuance and a lot of subtlety to it, such that people may not even know that it's there. But once you understand that perspective taking is about the other person, then you begin to understand how to engage with empathy in a way that's actually empathic and not just sort of showy with your cape. I mean, you can keep the cape, just don't run across the street when someone signals to you so clearly that they want their privacy because they're embarrassed, right? So perspective taking is about the other. Empathy is about the other. That can be hard if you don't have the 3 skills leading up to it. Good capacity for emotion contagion, good capacity for empathic accuracy, good capacity for emotion regulation. Then you can take the perspective of another, right? It's a wonderful thing, and if you have any difficulties with it, just immerse yourself in whatever art feeds your soul, right? If you don't like drama, don't look at drama. If you don't like literature, don't look at literature. Find something where you are imaginatively taking the place of the other, and you will develop better perspective taking skills. It's fun. It's awesome. I'll see you next week. Thanks. Bye-bye.